Greetings, everybody. What's up? What's going on? What's good? We are here live. This is the Sunday, March 31st, 2024 edition of the Boxing Source podcast. We are here, J.R. Bell here live with you, the leader of the Boxing Source. We got a number of things here that we're going to be talking about. We had a very busy weekend in the sport of boxing, but we're, mainly focusing on the fight card that happened in Las Vegas, Nevada. Yesterday, man, we had a great fight card. It was a great fight card, y'all. I mean, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed, all of the fights that were, part of this particular fight card. And hopefully y'all were able to as well, man. And, we want to go ahead and break down, of course, the 4 fights that were part of the pay-per-view portion of the card. We're going to be starting off, of course, with the main event there for the unified 154-pound titles there, Tim Tszyu versus Sebastian Fundora. You had, of course, Tim Tszyu coming in as the WBO champion at 154 pounds with an undefeated record of 24 wins and 0 losses, with 17 of those wins by way of knockout. Sebastian Fundora was in there, of course, as the replacement opponent to Keith Thurman. 20 wins, 1 loss, 1 draw. Yes, he did get knocked out or stopped by Brian Mendoza. They were planning on having a rematch there, with Brian Mendoza, at least for the WBC interim title there at 154 pounds. But Brian Mendoza went ahead and fought Tim Tszyu for that WBO super welterweight title. So that kind of like put, Sebastian Fundora in a little bit of a sticky situation before this whole thing took place. But then he was able to fit in there, replacing Keith Thurman, and was able to be in the main event. So you had these 2 guys, of course, they've been, on the top 5 or, of course, like the top 3 or 4. They're the 154-pound division, of course, while you had, at the time, what was it? At the time, undisputed champion there, Jermell Charlo. But, with Jermell Charlo, of course, having to relinquish all of his belts, first with the WBO and now, with these other belts, now you got, all of these 154 belts, all over the place. And so the WBC wanted in on the action. They wanted in on the action with the main event here that was last night. So they have put the WBC belt on the line there with Tszyu and Fundora. So let's get into it. The first round, I kind of like seeing Tim Tszyu, seeing how Sebastian Fundora was going to, approach him. And Fundora started throwing the jab, but, it's kind of like mixing the jab as far as like, how much he was going to put behind it. And, at first I seen that, Sebastian Fundora really was kind of like lazy with the jab a little bit, not putting that much force behind it. So Tim Tszyu was like saying like, you know what? I know that he has this reach advantage, 9.5 or whatever it is, but I'm going to try to, time him, duck, swerve over, try to block or parry or catch and shoot and throw the right hand while, Fundora being a southpaw, he had his left hand down. So in the first round, you kind of like seen Tim Tszyu be a little bit successful with throwing that right hand in. And before the end of the first round, he tagged Fundora there with a right hand. And you seen Mauro Ranallo talking about, he popped his head back like a pin dispenser or whatever it is, man. Mauro Ranallo kind of like over, exaggerates some things there, when he covers these fights. But he's trying to, bring the most out of it there. But you seen there in that first round and then in the second round where Tim Tszyu was taking advantage of the left hand of Fundora being, way down. So he was landing those right hands, whether it was lead right hands or something where he would try to, come forward with the left and then tag Fundora with the right, that he was having success. And you seen there at the, pretty much like before the end of the second round, that Fundora was already busted up. His nose was busted up there before the end of the second round. But then you had there within 10 seconds left or so of the second round, you had Tim Tszyu, trying that thing again, trying to throw that lead right hand or throw the right hand to land on Sebastian Fundora. And then after he attempted to throw that right hand, he leaned forward. And when he leaned forward, he caught the left elbow of Sebastian Fundora. And like I said, man, y'all better not call Sebastian Fundora the towering left elbow. All right, don't do that. It was just something that happens. It rarely happens in fights, but it still happens. And Tim Tszyu got cut on the top of his forehead, and that thing was just almost like a crimson mess off the rip. So in round 3, or pretty much before round 3, they seen how bad the cut was there for Tim Tszyu. His corner tried to get it alleviated as much as they possibly could. But they see, how much danger they were at that particular time. So Tim Tszyu came out swinging there at the top of the third round, and it was a really, really back and forth battle there in round 3 between both of those guys. And they really let it out there in that third round. And credit to Fundora there at round 3. Even though he was pretty much like behind on the cards. I feel like Fundora was behind on the cards there within those first 2 rounds. Those were 2 clear rounds there for Tim Tszyu. You know what I'm saying? And that, with that being said, he knew that he was in a disadvantage there for those first 2 rounds, and still, went out there and scrapped it up with Tim Tszyu, even with Tim Tszyu having that clear issue there with the cut on the top of his head. So I feel like that was a key part of the bout there for Sebastian Fundora to get through that particular bout. We get to Joseph Heron there of War Week Boxing, checking in here live on the YouTube chat. We are live on YouTube and on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. So if y'all are, enjoying the content, for sure you can go ahead and, hit that like button and whatnot. But, we kind of like want to get into, what's going down here. Like I said, within that third round, I think that was a pivotal round there for Sebastian Fundora, because he was able to weather the storm early in that particular round, and then kind of like, calm down a little bit, get to, what his strategy was, which was, throw the jab and then initially, try to get in there with the left hand or whatnot. And, when he was doing that, that was something where, he kind of like had that strategy and wanted to keep with that strategy. And, as the rounds went by, it was mainly, at least for those first few rounds afterwards, like the 4th, 5th, and 6th round, you've seen there where Tim Tszyu was like saying, you know what, I have a clear issue here with this cut being on the top of my head, that the blood is just gushing down, and I can't really see, once this thing starts to, flow. So I'm going to try to see if I could get in the early rush in, early start, try to get to Fundora and try to, break him down early there before this becomes like, more of an issue with my vision and everything like that. So you've seen Tim Tszyu kind of like adopt that strategy there early in those rounds, the 4th, 5th, and 6th. But, like I said, credit to Sebastian Fundora, because he had his nose broke there in the end of that second round. And he was dealing with all that blood that was coming down his nose. You seen it go into his mouth and all that type of stuff. Pause. And he was able to weather through all of that and still, stick with the strategy. Continue with the jab. Follow up with the left hand, every now and then, but kept his distance. He kept his distance away from Tim Tszyu over the course of the bout, over the course of these rounds, and not really allowed Tim Tszyu to, try to get inside there with that right hand, because, even though, Tim Tszyu still had the issue, right there, with the blood flowing down from the top of his head, he was still very competitive, over the course of the fight. But for me, I felt like it was a good move there for Sebastian Fundora, just sticking with the plan, sticking with just throwing the left jab and I mean the right jab, excuse me, and just keeping Tim Tszyu away from him. Like you didn't really see Tim Tszyu, for a lot of the bouts that he's had, Tim Tszyu wants to walk down his opponents, try to wear him down, work off of what his opponent's doing, and then just come back with the counter and try to get within range. But like I said, with Sebastian Fundora being much taller than Tim Tszyu, with him having a much longer reach than Tim Tszyu, it was a little bit more for him to try to work through all of that. So I felt like that was the main issue there for Tim Tszyu, and that he kind of like wanted to go ahead and like bite down on his gum shield and just go straight forward therefore to try to get this win. And I mean, it just didn't work out for him. Just didn't work out for him there. I felt like the constant work from Sebastian Fundora was enough over the course of those 12 rounds, but it was just an absolute bloodbath by both fighters. I felt like for Tim Tszyu, if it was just something that could, like, if he had a right hand or whatever it is that could have really buzzed or like stun Sebastian Fundora, maybe would be able to get back into this fight. But credit to Fundora for taking a number of those right hands, especially early, but then over the course of the 12 rounds, for him to go ahead and get through those 12 rounds and get it to a decision. And when it went to a decision, you had it split, but it was in favor of Sebastian Fundora. He had a 116-112 score and a 115-113 score. Tim Tszyu had it 116-112 in favor of Tim Tszyu. I think with Tim Tszyu, he probably favored the big shots or the power punches coming from Tim Tszyu in preference of the work that Sebastian Fundora was doing, just keeping the jab in front of Tim Tszyu. He was just keeping the jab in front of his face. He did not give up on just having that right hand in front of Tim Tszyu's face. And that was the key to this whole bout, was that Fundora, even with him dealing with that issue with his broken nose, having breathing issues over the course of 10 rounds, and at times where he probably was swallowing some blood or whatever it was, or whatever, because I mean that that was flowing, you know what I'm saying? And the thing is, man, I give credence to Sebastian Fundora for getting through this. I had picked Tim Tszyu to get the win. I had picked Tim Tszyu to get a stoppage win within 6 to 8 rounds. And it almost looked like he was on that, so he was able to weather that storm there very early, and that cut really affected things. You know what I'm saying? Big ups to Alan being on the live chat here on YouTube. If you want to hit the chat up, you can go over to YouTube. We're now live on YouTube and X. You know what I'm saying? Yes, he does. Joe's, like I said, shout out to Joe. He's on War Week Boxing. So you go on War Week Boxing to hit up Joe there. And shout out to Guillotine Enthusiast in the building, man. He says he was pulling for Fundora, and he's glad that they got the W. But it looked like a very different fight, before Tim's head got split open. Yeah, man. Like I was saying, those first 2 rounds, you seen Tim Tszyu kind of like figure out the range there where Sebastian Fundora was, and try to get under that. And let's see if I could hold on. War A Week Boxing. Yeah, War A Week Boxing, y'all. So yeah, you'll be able to check out Joe over there, man. But yeah, the thing was, man, those first 2 rounds, you seen Tim Tszyu kind of time Sebastian Fundora with those jabs. I thought it was weak, kind of like weak, or Fundora was trying to throw the right jab and not really put much behind it. So he didn't really snap with the jab early in the fight. And when you don't like really snap with the jab and put emphasis behind that jab, then you're kind of like opening the door there for your opponent to try to get to you or walk through that and counter you. And so what I seen from Tim Tszyu early in the fight was he was like, you know what? I'm going to try to get through this particular jab, whether I got to block it, swipe it, catch and shoot, or just, swerve and get in with the right hand counter, because Fundora having the left hand pretty low, that opens the door for those right hands to come in there from Tim Tszyu. And so that's what you've seen there, pretty much from the midpoint of the first round to nearly the end of the second round there from Tim Tszyu. So he had a clear 2-round advantage, up to that point where at the end of the round, you seen that Tim Tszyu just got hit, with the elbow, or he leaned forward, and leaned right into the elbow of Sebastian Fundora. So, with that being said, I mean that really affected, what he was going to do, how he was going to approach things. So, for Tim Tszyu, he kind of like bit down on his gum shield and tried to get through it. And hey, I'm like, after 4 rounds, I just really didn't think this fight was going to go past 6 rounds. I thought, it was going to be called. But, props to both of these fighters for getting through this. I mean, you had that serious cut there from Tim Tszyu on the top of his head. You had the broken nose there from Sebastian Fundora that was, really bothering him when it comes to, breathing and keeping a pace or whatever it is. But he was able to still, keep things going and keep the pace that he needed to do in order to go through these 12 rounds and execute his game plan. So, props to him, props to his his dad as his trainer, there in the corner, giving him that advice, just tell him to, stick with the game plan. And, through those 12 rounds, you just saw a really gritty performance there from Tim Tszyu on one side, and for Fundora just being very consistent in what he needed to do there. Excuse me. So I give props to Sebastian Fundora. Like I said, split decision win there on the cards. I felt like he did enough to win the fight. I kind of like had it around like that 7-5, 8-4, scorecard in favor of Sebastian Fundora. I just felt like, the thing with Tim Tszyu, he looked like he was going to, work on wearing down Sebastian Fundora. It was just like the cut was just way too much for him to deal with. I feel like, it affected his vision, and it affected his, strategy of trying to come forward and everything like that. Now, for me, I really didn't see that much coming from Tim Tszyu as far as like trying to work the body, but we'll see, man. Let me see, man. I just got a message on Twitter there, man. I have to like hit up somebody in reference to that. You know what I'm saying? Lonnie Lee, Just Boxing Talk, man. What's going on with you, man? Shout out Just Boxing Talk, Lonnie Lee in the building. He says like, yeah, Tim was lining him up for the right like it was nothing. Yeah, man. It was like almost like it was gonna be like a little bit. It looked like a little easy for Tim Tszyu to land that right hand on Sebastian Fundora there early in the fight. And the thing about it was like, you really didn't see that much of an answer there from Sebastian Fundora early. He was just willing to, try to get through it and throw shots back, but his amount of activity was the key in this particular bout. It was the key in this bout. Let me see here. Like I'm gonna have to hit up somebody in reference to something because they just hit me up with a real good question here on X, but we'll see, man. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna get back to it on this thing here with Zoo and Fundora, and at least for me, I like over the course of like what the past year and a half or whatever it is, I'm gonna be straight up. I hadn't really been that much of a fan of Tim Tszyu. Um, I didn't really think he had like the complete was a complete fighter when it came to being there at the 154-pound division. It was just that he was a come forward offensive fighter that could, really wear down a number of his opponents. It's just that, if he had, went up against a fighter that, had either good speed, good foot movement, and could, crack a little bit, that he would have, that he would have some trouble, So him getting through those fights against Tony Harrison, Brian Mendoza last year. Then he had that easy fight there against Carlos Ocampo. So that kind of like built his profile there a little bit with those 3 fights in 2023. But we it was still yet to see Tim Tszyu against like a top 5 fighter there in the 154-pound division. Yeah, he was slated to face Jamel Charlo early last year, but circumstances just didn't have that happen. So Tim Tszyu just went ahead and tried to get those fights there in 2023, and then had the thing set up for 2024 where either he was going to fight Terrence Crawford, or they eventually worked out this deal with Keith Thurman, which to this day I still feel like that was a weird thing that Keith Thurman was going to fight Tim Tszyu, but I guess at that point they wanted to go ahead and fit that event there for March 30th. So they said, hey, let's put Tim Tszyu out there, let's roll him out there, and let's have him against a familiar name there in Keith Thurman. So they would have had and just tried to roll with that, and then once Keith Thurman had been injured, then in steps in Sebastian Fundora. Now, I mean, props to Tim Tszyu for sticking with this and accepting this particular fight. That's a complete 180 going from fighting a guy in Keith Thurman, where it was scheduled for 12 rounds or 10 rounds or whatever it is, but it was going to be above 154 pounds. And then you turn around and now you got to face Sebastian Fundora there, who's like at 6'6", that has that reach advantage. So, for Tim Tszyu to go ahead and still accept that fight, props to him for that. They had a little bit more on the line, not just the WBO title, but the WBC title on the line there. So, props to Tim Tszyu for still taking this bout. Like I said, it still looked like he was, having a good start there against Sebastian Fundora before, him just getting hit with that elbow. So, he was able to try to get through that, deal with that elbow, and he still almost scored the win. Like I said, man, one of those scorecards was 115-113 in favor of Sebastian Fundora. And that was David Sutherland who had that 115-113 score. And David Sutherland had the 12th round in favor of Sebastian Fundora. So if Tim Tszyu would have been able to have that 10-9 round there on David Sutherland's card, you would have had yourselves a draw. You would have had yourselves a draw. He would have at least been able to keep the WBO title, and the WBC title would have stayed vacant. But it just didn't fall in his favor there. You know what I'm saying? But with that being said, now you have both Fundora and Tszyu now with some questions as far as like what's next. Of course, y'all seen that Errol Spence stepped in the ring there to say that, hey, he wants it with Sebastian Fundora, and that he, of course, is coming off of an extended layoff, the big loss to Terrence Crawford, there for the undisputed welterweight titles. But it looks like you know, looks like he still is a fighter that kind of like commands things around those divisions, just like Canelo Alvarez commands things within the 168, 175-pound divisions. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to Sid UK in the building on the YouTube chat. He said Tim Tszyu had another trash scorecard. How is he still judging fights? Well, I mean, he said that he scored 8 rounds in favor of Tim Tszyu, in this. I mean, I don't know. I guess Tim Tszyu thought that the power punches from Tim Tszyu were enough to score a number of those rounds. Man, I have to go back to where I was able to see this scorecard. I think Tim Tszyu had the first 2 rounds, and then rounds 5 and 6, and he had rounds 8 through 11 in favor of Tim Tszyu. So those were the 8 rounds. The first 2, 5 and 6, and 8 through 11 in favor of Tim Tszyu from Tim Tszyu. So, I mean, hey, I guess, like I said, I guess he, favored, the power shots from Tim Tszyu over the, jabs and, trying to control the distance like Sebastian Fundora was doing. So, I mean, that's the best way I could explain it there, Sid. That's the best way I could explain it. But yeah, outside of that, man, like I said, I felt like Sebastian Fundora did what he had to do in order to, keep Tim Tszyu away from him for the majority of those rounds and stick to his game plan. So props to Sebastian Fundora for sticking to his game plan and, not really giving the opportunity for Tim Tszyu to like really take advantage or take over in this particular bout. Like I compared this to, what happened the day before. If y'all watched the Oscar Valdez versus Liam Wilson fight, where Liam Wilson had a clear height and reach advantage and didn't take advantage, just didn't take advantage of that. And that ended up being his downfall. So big ups for Sebastian Fundora for doing what he needed to do in order to get through those 12 rounds and get the win. That was, he overcame a lot there, with the adversity there in that particular fight. But back to what I was saying there as far as like what's next. It's a really really good question. You have there Errol Spence Jr. He's the big fish. I did talk about this before the fight took place, where Errol Spence had posted, "Hey, I'm on the way to the Tszyu Fundora fight. I want the winner." And that pretty much like had folks buzzing, and there he was in attendance, and he watched the fight, and he said, "Hey, look, I picked Fundora to win. Hey, I cashed in. Fundora won." And so he stepped in the ring and he said, "Hey, yeah, man, I want to get it on. What's up? Let's get it on." And so, Fundora was kind of like open to it. Even Tim Tszyu was like open to a fight with Errol Spence or with Terrence Crawford. So it almost looked like, neither Fundora or Tim Tszyu was interested in a rematch with each other, regardless of what happened there in this bout, But, for me, I feel like, that was all business because, we know that Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, they're the ones that kind of like have the money behind them or whatever it is. So, both of those guys were kind of like going for either Terrence Crawford or Errol Spence. But with Errol Spence, is like, this is the thing that's gotten some of these boxing fans in a tizzy, is that, okay, Errol Spence, you had a loss in your last fight. You lost significantly in your last fight. Pretty much got stopped, got beat up and everything like that. So Why is it that you're able to, quote unquote, skip the line over Terrence Crawford and supposedly get the winner of this Tim Tszyu Sebastian Fundora fight? Well, I mean, that's a good question. But that's the thing about the business of boxing. Sometimes the business of boxing really hinders or hurts some fighters, and the thing about it is that you'll have some of these fans or whatever it is, or some people talk about, because Terrence Crawford ain't really completely say he's down with the PBC or this and that, and that's why he's not really put in position to have these fights coming up. Not necessarily. The thing about it was, even with that fight that happened last year, there was a lot of money behind that particular fight between Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford. And the thing with Terrence Crawford is, yes, he was able to get the win. He was able to have a great performance against Errol Spence. He was able to become the undisputed champion at 147 pounds. He was supposed to be the one that kind of like catapulted to superstar status, but it kind of looks like that hasn't quite happened yet, and that there really isn't much of a demand for Terrence Crawford to go ahead and have a fight with just about anybody. For me, if you want to be quote unquote superstar status, like a Canelo or like a, as they say, Anthony Joshua, it won't matter who the opponent is. Y'all are coming to see Canelo or Anthony Joshua. So in the same sense with Terrence Crawford, it shouldn't matter who the opponent is. You would be coming to see Terrence Crawford. And so regardless of what Terrence Crawford would be asking for, you would be like, hey, you know what? Since the fans are really up for watching Terrence Crawford and enjoying Terrence Crawford's fight, he could, go ahead and ask for this amount of money. We should be able to at least make that type of money when Terrence Crawford fights. But it, like, from what I'm seeing here, it just doesn't look like that. It just doesn't look like that. So, yeah, the whole thing about a potential rematch with Errol Spence is pretty much like out the window. So then what would be out there for Terrence Crawford? Pretty much like brought this up the other day. Like what fights are out there for Terrence Crawford right now? If he's not interested in fighting Boots, if the Spence rematch is not out there, what is going to be the most attractive fight there for Terrence Crawford? Is it going to be Sebastian Fundora? Is it going to be Tim Tszyu? Who knows? But we just got to see, man. We got somebody on here. He says that's cap. It's major demand for Bud. The commercial stuff for casuals. Real boxing fans want to see Bud. Okay, here's my thing. Like I said, if real boxing fans want to see Bud, then you got to go ahead and buy the tickets for when he fights. Bottom line. Like I'll say it again. If you know that there is no rematch between Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. happening, if Terrence Crawford is the guy that is a superstar, that's the A side, it shouldn't matter who his opponent is. The fights would be out there for Terrence Crawford for them to go ahead and have him fight just about anybody where they'll be able to make money. That's it. Like, if you want to put him in the status of a Canelo Alvarez, if you want to put him in the status of, say, Anthony Joshua, that's it. So why is it that you're having a lot of buzz for Errol Spence when he makes just one mention of saying that he would fight the winner of Tim Tszyu versus Sebastian Fundora, when days before, it was already put out there that Terrence Crawford could have potentially fought the winner? I'm just saying. Now, the thing about it is, Terrence Crawford is the WBO super champion at 147 pounds. So what does that mean? That means that if he chooses to be at 154 pounds, he is automatically the number one contender for the WBO title. Automatically. Over was Erickson Lubin, over Josh Kelly, over all of those guys. So if he wanted to, he could just say, hey, I'm the super champion. I get first dibs for the WBO champion. And he pretty much said that. That's why you had the WBO president right after the fight say, hey, Sebastian Fundora, you won. Hey, good job by you. Good job by you. Now it's time for you to go into negotiations with Terrence Crawford. And that's what it is. So you've seen that post from the president of the WBO. You're going to probably see a resolution that's going to be posted on the WBO website. But will that mean that the fight actually takes place? Probably not. Just like, did the fight take place for Terrence Crawford and who was it? Alexis Rocha, when Alexis Rocha was the WBO mandatory? No. I mean, it is what it is. Like I said, man, and Sid just says it. WBO mandated Bud next. So if Fundora doesn't fight him, then it's Bud versus Josh Kelly for the belts. Problem is, both those fights don't match his purse demands right now. Thank you, Sid. Thank you. So y'all mean to tell me that Bud Crawford versus Sebastian Fundora is going to move the needle for enough people to be interested in it, that Bud will be able to make the money that he wants to for those fights? Or Terrence Crawford versus a Josh Kelly? Like, do they move the needle enough for fans to be interested, for people to be interested in buying the pay-per-view, so that they have enough interest in that so that everybody makes money? That's why it's a business. I'm just saying, just giving it to y'all straight. There's a few fights that are out there for Terrence Crawford where he is going to have enough interest in it for him to get the money that maybe he's asking for. There's probably a few fights out there, just a few. Spence rematch, yeah. Canelo, yeah. It would have been Tim Tszyu if he won, potentially. And the whole thing with Jermell Charlo, that's pretty much out the window. Charlo doesn't have any belts. So with Charlo having no belts, there's no incentive of fighting Jermell Charlo at this point. So that's the thing about it. I mean, Charlo doesn't have the following that Errol Spence has. Just doesn't. So with those options out there, I said it the other day. If you don't see anything lined up for Terrence Crawford by July, don't be surprised if he doesn't have a fight this year. And someone else took it a step further. They said if they don't see a fight coming there for Terrence Crawford by July this year, he might end up retiring. I don't see that. But I'm just saying it just doesn't. It'll look all too hot for Terrence Crawford, man. Like, I mean, y'all, they put out these things about, Terrence Crawford fighting Chris Eubank maybe, or whatever it is. If it doesn't move the needle, it doesn't move the needle, I've suggested maybe Terrence Crawford going up against Carlos Adames at 160. I mean, why not? Carlos Adames is looking for a fight there at 160. He's the WBC interim champion at 160. So, and yeah, Crawford and Adames are familiar with each other, so why not? Why not? But yeah, that's the thing, man. You'll be able to see what happens here. I know that folks are, coming up with potential matchups there at 154. Maybe Spence versus Fundora for the WBC. And, Bud versus maybe Erickson Lubin for the WBO. You could see that. And then the winners fight each other. You could say that. You could see that happening. But it just depends on what happens there with Sebastian Fundora. If he just, he's going to be in there in the negotiation table. He's going to have his promoter there, Sam Salukowicz. Sam Salukowicz has said multiple things about this. And also Sebastian Fundora said something, that pretty much that was a little bit different. But yeah, over these next few weeks, you're gonna see like what's gonna be out there for Sebastian Fundora, whether it's going to be Errol Spence or it's going to be Terrence Crawford. And, I mean that's it is what it is. Whether Terrence Crawford has enough behind him or enough backing behind him that says, "Hey, I could get paid this much money, and we'll be able to give um, Sebastian Fundora this amount," and that's that. And the thing about it is too, WBO did mandate Bud for next, but I got to see the specifics of that because guess what? It's Sebastian Fundora as the champion. So how do the percentages work for it? Crawford as a mandatory, Crawford as a mandatory challenger. Yeah, I don't know how that's going to work. They've had modifications to the mandatory rules when it comes to those things, but is it going to have it to the point where Terrence Crawford is going to be favorable when it comes to the purse or supposed purse split? Who knows? But the thing is, he's not the champion at 154. Sebastian Fundora is the champion at 154. So, that's the thing about it. That's why, like at the time, what was it? When Devin Haney was an undisputed champion at 135, and Tank Davis had the WBA quote unquote regular title, when folks were potentially saying that those two were going to fight each other in that, oh, wait, Tank Davis is a supposed mandatory. Okay, if he is a mandatory, you think he's going to take a lesser percentage than Devin Haney? Nah, that ain't happening. So you have the same case here, right? You have Terrence Crawford coming in as a mandatory challenger. Unless if the WBO has like a special ruling behind that, yeah, I don't see Crawford having taking a lesser percentage in there, unless if they have something worked out for Terrence Crawford and Sebastian Fundora. So that's that. You know what I mean? So you have that on one side, and then on the other side, like I said, with Errol Spence. Errol Spence has the backing of. They say he has the backing of Al Heyman or whatever it is, and whatever Heyman Boxing does. So you could see Errol Spence versus Sebastian Fundora at AT&T Stadium in the summer. Don't be surprised with that either. You can see that in maybe July or August. Wouldn't be surprised one bit. So like I was saying a few days ago, you could see Terrence Crawford out there being like the Raven of boxing. If y'all follow wrestling, they had a wrestler out there named Raven, and he had this line, "What about me? What about Raven?" Well, Terrence Crawford's gonna be like, "What about me? What about Bud?" And that is what it is. Yeah, we know that Terrence Crawford is a talented fighter. He's multi-division world champion, two-division undisputed world champion. But if you don't put the butts in the seats like that match what your demands are, you could be on the shelf, and that's what it is. So that being said, man, that's mainly the thing that I had in reference to this whole thing with the Sebastian Fundora, Tim Tszyu, Terrence Crawford, Errol Spence thing. Hey, maybe, like I said, maybe it'll work out something where it's Fundora versus Spence and Crawford versus Lubin or somebody like that. And then you have a rematch. That'll be a unification bout at 154. Why not just have that? But we'll see. That's it for that one. We're gonna go to the co-feature bout. The co-feature bout. Rolando Rolly Romero, Isaac Pitbull Cruz. Oh man. I wish I had my guy MVO on here. I really wish I had my guy MVO on here. He was one that kind of predicted or kind of called that Rolly Romero would win by stoppage. It's like I said, like I didn't see, I haven't seen anything from Rolly Romero that would have had him winning by stoppage over Isaac Cruz. He just does not have the technique to keep Isaac Cruz off of him. And you saw that from round one, that Isaac Cruz was able to get to Rolly Romero and land a big shot on him to buzz Rolly Romero and have him, doing the stanky leg and doing the heel toe dance and all that type of stuff from round one. And it was just a matter of time before, Isaac Cruz seriously hurt him. Yeah, you had Rolly trying to, use his jab or use the distance and use the range, whatever it is. But he just threw shots like above the body of Isaac Cruz. And I'm like, you really don't have that type of power to really affect Isaac Cruz like that. And Isaac Cruz really hasn't been down, on the canvas. So he has like a solid base, very stocky there at 5'4", and really like has a granite chin. So why are you continuing to try to throw power shots and throw jabs upstairs and not try to work the body? And you didn't see that at any point really there from Rolly Romero. And he just made it easy. He made it easy for Isaac Cruz to get to him, to wear him down. And then, with the holding that was happening, Thomas Taylor, stepped in and got involved and took a point away from Rolly Romero for excessive holding. And once he did that, that was pretty much it. That was pretty much it for Rolly Romero. And so now you got Isaac Cruz now as the WBA champion at 140 pounds, getting a stoppage there in the 8th round. It was just a beatdown of sorts, Props for Rolly for not going down to the canvas, but there were multiple times where he was really close to hitting the canvas. But he just didn't really do anything to, really affect Isaac Cruz. So that might be it for Rolly, man. That might be it for Rolly. That's if they have like somewhere he has a rematch with Ismael Barroso or something like that. That might be a wrap for Rolly Romero, man. That you're not gonna see him, involved in being part of a world title picture at 140 pounds. You're just not gonna see it. With that being said, now with Isaac Cruz, this opens the door for a lot of opportunities there for Isaac Cruz. There being the WBA champion, yes, there is Ismael Barroso as the interim champion, so you could potentially have that particular matchup coming up. Some folks are talking about Tank Davis. Yeah, I'm kind of seeing that demand come up because there might be like a plan of sorts, maybe, that if Tank goes ahead and faces Isaac Cruz for that WBA title and wins, you could have that super fight between Tank Davis and Devin Haney. But as recently as earlier today, you had, of course, Coach Kenny Ellis of Upton Boxing Gym, of course, one of the trainers there for Tank Davis. He basically stated that there's unfinished business at 135 pounds for Tank Davis. Yes, he does have planned a fight with Frank Martin, but when they talk about unfinished business at 135, they're talking about Shakur Stevenson. So we got to see what happens with Shakur Stevenson. He does have a fight coming up in this summer, and he gets through that, then hey, we might see that super fight between Tank and Shakur first before anything happens where Tank could potentially move up to 140 pounds. And that's pretty much that. Now, with Isaac Cruz being a world champion, you do have, of course, Teofimo Lopez as a world champion, Devin Haney as a world champion, and you have Subriel Matias as a world champion there. So, I'm trying to reach out to Sean Gibbons, the promoter there for Isaac Cruz, and see if he would, be open to having those potential fights against those world champions. I would like a fight between Isaac Cruz and Teofimo Lopez. That would be a very interesting fight, especially with Teofimo Lopez having a couple of those fights against movers like the Sandor Martins and the Jermaine Ortiz's, where we had a good amount of trouble trying to get to those particular fighters, and that he really has some issues trying to cut off the ring. So now you wouldn't have to worry about that with Isaac Cruz. Isaac Cruz is coming right for you, there, Teofimo Lopez. So if you don't really like guys that move around the ring that much, okay, go ahead and face someone like a Isaac Cruz. It's going to be right there in front of you, and see what you're going to be able to do with that. So there's that. I know a number of people have kind of like mentioned Gary Antoine Russell as a potential opponent for Isaac Cruz. Just being straight up, haven't heard much from Gary Antoine Russell recently. And the thing about it is, he's not really involved in the WBA rankings and hasn't been for some time. So you see Gary Antoine Russell in the rankings for the WBC, but not for the WBA. So unless if he makes a push to try to be in those WBA rankings, then yeah, maybe you could see that. But I'll say what could be a way that he could get involved with that. Go ahead and have that fight with Alberto Puello. Have the fight with Alberto Puello, who was a former WBA champion there at 140. Go ahead and fight him, get that win, and then we'll see if he's ready to go after like an Isaac Cruz. Number one ranked fighter in the WBA is Kenneth Sims Jr. currently. We got to see what's up with him. I think he's supposed to have something coming up, man. I'm gonna check here on BoxRec and see what's up with Kenneth Sims Jr. because he's gotta be able to get himself involved, man. And he hasn't had a fight since last May. So we gotta see if Kenneth Sims is gonna be in the picture as well. But yeah, for Rolly Romero though, yeah, that might be a wrap for him. That might be a wrap for him there when it comes to being amongst the serious contenders there in the 140-pound division. You're going to see him probably build his record up a little bit. He's only had 17 pro fights. That's it. Just 17 pro fights. Of course, he got stopped by Tank Davis there at 135 pounds. And then he had the one fight there at 140 against Barroso before this bout here against Isaac Cruz. So now it's just a question of, okay, where is he going to fit in? And just to be honest, I really don't know where he fits in there at the 140-pound division. There's a number of, highly skilled fighters there at 140. And you just don't know where Rolly fits in on that. Some people just really don't think he's that highly skilled. So he can't, who are you going to match him up with? That's the question. Who are you going to match him up with? Is he going to fight say randomly, a Regis Prograis? Does he beat Regis Prograis? Does he beat a Jermaine Ortiz? Does he beat Michelle Rivera? That's going to be, that would be it. Does he beat Michelle Rivera there at 140 pounds? Does Rolly Romero beat Michelle Rivera at this point at 140 pounds? That would be the question. Big ups for the guests coming in here. Of course, a great guest here on the Boxing Source. It's the Boxing Academic in the building, man. What's happening with you?
Hey, what's going on, JR? How you doing tonight?
All good, man. Just chopping it up with boxing and reacting to the fight card there between Tim Tszyu and Sebastian Fundora, and what the aftermath is to all of it. So I only went through those the main event, the co-feature bout. So if you have any thoughts here, and I'm going to give you longer than 15 seconds to react to it.
So you ain't gonna cut me off either, huh?
No, I'm not going to cut you off either. You don't have to worry about that.
I appreciate your well-mannered show, sir. I really do. Unlike some people I know. Yes, I'm talking to you. You know you know who I'm talking to. But I do appreciate his intro, even though I think he was being funny. But neither here nor there.
Right.
So I'm gonna say sort of what I was saying yesterday, but I'm gonna finish my thought, which is I believe that the circumstance that was the most fortuitous circumstance happened in the fight, which was Tim Tszyu getting cut on top of the head, having, the faucet of blood leak into his eye, and that slowed down his momentum enough to where Fundora, so first 2 rounds, we know Tim Tszyu was coming on strong. At one point was just landing a bunch of left or right hands, whichever stance he is. He was landing a bunch of like power shots like consecutively, and the momentum really switched. And so when that happened, that slowed Tim Tszyu down enough to where Fundora, because I know people are like, how can you see this? But you could start see Fundora wanting to or thinking about, am I gonna have to take it there with him? Like, how when he gets to a point to where somebody hit him too much and or he panics in a sense, he just starts throwing shots on the inside. And so he was getting to that point to where he, either was not able to close the distance, and then his only out was going to be, let me fight out of this corner, which is an admirable thing. But for him, that doesn't bode well for him, against the wrong fighter. And so he was at the cusp of panicking in a sense. And so, and I'm not saying panicking like he on the floor having a panic attack. I'm saying panicking and going away from what would make him successful, which is throwing out a long jab and making Tszyu have to, go across that minefield. So Tszyu gets the cut on his head. That visibly bothers Tszyu. He can't see blood in his eye. That's probably the first time he done got cut like that in a fight. I don't know.
Yeah.
But you can tell it was awkward. No different than when Floyd Mayweather got cut that time, and he was like pawing at it the whole time. It's a new sensation when people haven't had that, and they got to readjust. So that gave Fundora enough time to where he started feeling confident in himself, and he was like, "Oh, you know what? I can win this fight. I can win this fight by keeping him off me, by stepping back and just jabbing in his eye, jabbing him right on his on his forehead." And so that's what he did. He jabbed him on the forehead. Tszyu landed a couple pretty good shots, and then Fundora just jabbed, and then he threw the right hand. If only Fundora had a little bit more power, then he would be a different fighter. I would say that. But one thing you got to do is give it up to Tim Tszyu. Tim Tszyu faced a lot of adversity, which is what we asked. How would he respond? And so what I saw yesterday against a man who has better physical traits in terms of length, might have been faster than him, but I don't think Fundora was more skilled than him. I just think he might have just had faster hands, maybe by a little bit. And obviously he got longer hands. So, but Tszyu was the better fighter in a sense. Tszyu's the better fighter. But he responded like a champion responds, a lot of adversity. He didn't quit. He kept trying to win. He kept trying to do different things to land his big shot. Fundora hit him with a body shot in one of them rounds that hurt him real bad, or bad enough, and then he went away from it. He didn't throw another body shot. but that body shot like visibly hurt Tszyu. Tszyu started backing up a little bit. Started questioning himself, and then Fundora didn't like capitalize and or follow up on it. So Tszyu kept doing what he was doing, which is throwing his, power hand, and that shot landed at will. But Fundora, when he sees a shot, he can take the shot, generally speaking. So, I mean, it was a good fight. Very bloody, very gory fight. Both guys bit down because, Fundora, again, the right set of circumstances happened to where he regained his composure and was able to stick to the game plan. But I question a Tszyu that's not leaking. Would he be able to stick to the game plan, and or does he make it out of the fight? Will he be able to do that jab and move without Tszyu catching him and landing something that hurts him? I don't know, but it didn't seem like Tszyu after the fight really said that he wanted to take the fight. I saw the press conference where they was like, well, how about this? Are you going to do whatever? And he was like, yeah, man, I'll fight anybody. I'll fight anybody. But he didn't really say, I want my belt back.
Yeah.
He responded like a champion because, he was like, hey, man, he the better man tonight. Yeah, some unfortunate events happened, but shoot, I tried. And I mean, he was a better man tonight. That's how you respond. It wasn't no weirdness on the card. It was what it was. Fundora should have won based upon him being able to land the jab a lot more. Land the jab, and that allow him to land, the little soft right hands that he did throw, or the whatever his power hand. I don't know which one was orthodox and which one was southpaw. I can't remember.
Tim Tszyu is the orthodox fighter, and Fundora's a southpaw fighter.
Thank you. But it's I mean, it's unfortunate that Tszyu had to go through that, but I mean, that tells me more about him than all of his wins did. But does he really want this fight? And then when maybe they know something on the background that everybody else doesn't know, because he didn't even be like, well, wait a second. When Errol Spence came in, wait a second, I got to get another shot at my belt. This is a freak accident type of thing. And even then it was a split decision. He didn't say that. And even in the press conference, he was just like, they was like, well, do you want him again? Yeah, I'll fight anybody. I'll, whatever. He just didn't seem like he wanted it, which is a tall test. Now, let's be honest. Fundora is a tough out for anybody. But yeah, I'll let you say whatever.
I mean, the thing with Tim Tszyu, though, like you were saying after the fight, it was more about him being open to facing a guy like Errol Spence or Terrence Crawford. But like you brought up, when Errol Spence got up there and he said, yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to fight Fundora. Like, you didn't really hear Tim Tszyu kind of like be like, hey, wait, man, what about me? I mean, I want a rematch or something like that. He wasn't really adamant in like going for the rematch. It was almost like he kind of conceded to the results, So there was that.
Yeah, and it's weird. Like I get it. He's humble. And I respect that about him, but you in the worst circumstance you could have been in, put on a pretty good performance in terms of given the circumstances. You responded how you supposed to respond, meaning people still want to see you. People want to see you more now with these other fights. Yes, and maybe that's what he's thinking. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt because now since I'm rationalizing this, maybe that's what he's thinking. That sure, I could fight this fight with Fundora again. And there's not a lot of reward for the risk. And who knows, now since I fought him one time, who knows what happened. But, if I fight these other guys, this has raised my stature enough to where people want to see me fight Errol Spence and or Crawford. But obviously Errol Spence ain't trying to fight him. Why would he?
Yeah. He wants dibs on the winner. You know what I'm saying? Big ups for everybody that's listening live on Twitter or X or whatever it is. Big ups to y'all. Big ups for everyone listening live on YouTube. Just hit the like button, hit the share button. Spread the word there from the Boxing Source. Want to get in another guest here that's been waiting in the queue for a good little minute. It's probably disappointed that his guy wasn't here on this main event yesterday. because he probably would have taken advantage of the issues there from Tim Tszyu. But Tip Bellis is in the building, man. What's going on, Tip?
Yo, I'm so pissed, bro. I would have been ready to hop on every YouTube channel possible yesterday after that fight, bro. Everyone possible.
You mean if Keith Thurman was the winner? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, had he won, bro. Oh man, look, they would have been sick of me.
But Keith Thurman wouldn't have elbowed him like that.
Nah,
It would have been
But
very unlikely
it's
that he
not
got a
even.
cut on top of his head
But
with Keith Thurman.
it's not like Fundora threw an elbow. Tim came in with his head.
Yep.
And
He did, but he came in with his head with a 7-foot elbow, which is probably 5'5" with how tall his elbow is.
Yeah. Yeah, he wouldn't have had that, Tim Tszyu likely wouldn't have had that issue there with Keith Thurman, you know what I'm saying? But, the thing is too, I just felt like Tim Tszyu, even though I felt like he was going to win this bout against Sebastian Fundora, I just don't give Tim Tszyu that much credence as far as like him being a top level fighter. You know what I'm saying? So, if he was fighting someone like a Keith Thurman that has, the experience that Keith Thurman has, I think he would have had, a little bit more issues here and there, So
look, from what I seen, right? He was picking up steam. He was definitely picking up steam in the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
The way I was looking at it, I was like, oh yeah, he's getting ready to stop Fundora. That's how I was looking at it. And then once the cut happened, the fight did change. It changed everything. And then what I started to notice is, like Thurman said, Tszyu became very flat-footed. He was leaning a lot on his back foot. He was putting a lot of weight on his back foot, and he was just standing there. I guess he really couldn't see. And so Fundora was just taking advantage of it with that jab the entire night.
But shit, didn't he have to? He had to be able to so Fundora got 6-inch reach on him. He had to put his weight on the back foot to make it harder for Fundora to hit him with those shots, and then B, be able to spring and I mean, obviously you want your weight on the front foot if you're trying to throw the backhand, but I mean, I think that was just with the reach to be further away.
But then when I also look at it, if that injury happens with a Thurman, he gets finished. I'm sorry, he gets finished. I don't think that fight goes all. It might even get stopped early.
Someone would turn up the pressure on him.
I think the pressure would turn up, but also I think the corner would take care of the fighter.
The crazy thing is that after round 4, the ref asked him, "Hey," he all but said, "Do you want to stop this now?"
Yeah. Yeah, that was my guy, Dave Chappelle as a referee or whatever it is. I mean Harvey Doc. But yeah, he did go to the corner and say, "Hey, y'all wanna go ahead and call it," and they were like, "Nah." So they just let it keep going. Because like I was saying that live, like I was like after rounds 4 or 5, I was like, nah, man, I just didn't think it was going to continue. But they were able to get through those 12 rounds, man. So props to both of them.
They gave the people their money worth. It would have been a bummer. I mean, we already had like 2 fights canceled, and then for a fight to stop like that, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. Second round with a cut, it would have been a shit show.
Well, yeah. I'm saying after the 4th round when it was tied, that's when he asked him. Obviously, they didn't know that, but shit, should he have stopped the fight there? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either, man. Because I just felt like everything was like up for grabs there, like after round 6 and 7. So for me, it was basically what both Tim Tszyu and Fundora could do. But I just felt like the thing with Tim Tszyu, his strategy just completely changed there. After receiving that cut. So like his mobility, his reaction to trying to get away from the punches from Fundora, they just weren't necessarily there because he was just worried about that cut being in his eyes, man, or the blood being in his eyes.
Do you think Fundora should take the Crawford fight next?
Now that was the thing that kind of was getting to a couple of people here before you jumped on.
I got an answer, but I'll wait for JR.
I don't think he will, because I think there's going to be a little bit more incentive for Fundora to fight Errol Spence in comparison to Terrence Crawford, you know. And the thing with Terrence Crawford is he does ask for a lot.
I don't think there's any real backing with him.
Yeah, there's no real backing with him.
But the biggest thing is that fighting Errol Spence is less risk for Fundora. Why wouldn't you fight him?
Mm-hmm.
If you defending your belt, it's gonna be more hassle. You may or may not get more money to Terrence Crawford. It's gonna be a tougher fight with Terrence Crawford, and you might not win. With Errol Spence, it's still a question with Errol Spence. Shit, can Errol Spence take a punch? Can he? I don't know.
Yeah, that's the question. Those are the things that people are up in the air about in reference to Errol Spence Jr. Like how is his condition at this particular point? Is he, still damaged from what's happened in the past with the car crash, the two car crashes basically. But you had the major accident there, and then what happened there with Terrence Crawford. So boxing fans will be like, is Errol Spence really, good enough to take a fight of that particular magnitude? And Errol Spence still has that mentality. I don't take any tune-ups. So he would have been willing to, like I said, face Sebastian Fundora or Tim Tszyu, regardless of who the winner would be or what the result would have been. He would have been in there and said, "Hey, I want the winner." So
basically, the WBO gets dropped.
Yep.
And then, that just leaves Bohachuk as a mandatory.
Well, Bohachuk there is the interim champion right now, of course, with his win over Brian Mendoza.
He's got to defend twice.
But like Sid said, about half hour ago, he said, look, WBO mandated Crawford next, so if Fundora doesn't fight him, it's Bud versus Josh Kelly, who's the next guy up there in the rankings. And you were laughing there, Tip, because come on, Kelly, come on, who's gonna be interested in that particular fight?
Man, had Josh Kelly not lost to Avanesian, man.
Avanesian, yeah.
And then it's gonna look real bad if Crawford. Damn. Yeah, that's gonna look bad.
And the other thing too was some people were kind of chiming in reference to Terrence Crawford and that he should be the one that should be top of the line and everything like that. But here was the other thing too that I mentioned, right? You have Terrence Crawford. And he's there as the the WBO super champion. And the thing about it is that will PBC or whatever it is play ball when it comes to him and Sebastian Fundora, in comparison to when Terrence Crawford moved up from 140 to 147, where he had to face Jeff Horn. But the thing about it is he was already locked in a contract with Top Rank, and Jeff Horn just had that win over Manny Pacquiao at the time. So that fight was a much easier fight to try to make. But here, given the circumstances with the initial negotiations between Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence, to where it took until July of last year for the fight to happen, you think that they don't have some type of feelings when it came to that?
I wouldn't fool with the dude, man. Look, he fights once a year, and he wants too much money. We've already heard that from Bob.
Who y'all talking about?
Terrence Crawford.
Oh.
Yeah, it's just a waste. And you know what I'm saying? To try and build him as a star, it's too late for all that.
Yeah, that was the thing, man. I was telling somebody. I was like, that particular fight against against Errol Spence, they had built everything up for him to kind of like have his, showing out. You have him out there with Eminem. You introduce him or you bring him out there, second. Have Eminem bring him out to the ring. He has that great performance, and that's supposed to like say, okay, now he's the next guy. He's the next superstar. He's the one where, as I mentioned, that it wouldn't really matter who the opponent was for Terrence Crawford. People were wanting to see Terrence Crawford. But if you don't necessarily have that demand towards Terrence Crawford, then it wouldn't have mattered if he fought a Boots Ennis, if he would have had, a fight against Jermell Charlo maybe, or anything like that. The only thing that would have made sense for him is to have the rematch with Errol Spence. That's why you kind of like seeing him, Terrence Crawford suggest, hey, maybe I should go after Canelo Alvarez. Why would you go after Canelo Alvarez at 168? Because you may not have that many options there below 168. So he's really at a bad spot. What's he just say up here? Rolly versus Broner could do good numbers, and both of them could talk a good fight up. Now I gotta see if Broner and Blair, the Flair Cobbs is gonna actually have a fight first.
I don't want to see Rolly in no more big. I want to see Rolly in tune-ups. I don't want to see no more big fights.
Yeah, I don't want to see him in big fights either, man. Like he's, like I said, he's only been 17 pro fights in, and they kind of like it, almost like they put him out there to the wolves pretty early, and he was able to get through a number of these fights, and then got that Tank fight in 2022, and then the Barroso fight where they had really did some things there. So yeah, but yeah, I really don't want to see Rolly Romero really in any of those type of fights there anytime soon. Actually, you might, what though? You might see him get fed to Gary Antoine Russell. If Gary Antoine Russell doesn't face somebody like a Alberto Puello next, or maybe a Brandon Lee or something like that. But I don't think Rolly Romero is going to be in the limelight anytime soon. You might see him in a mid-card fight against Michelle Rivera. Actually, don't be surprised about that. Rolly Romero versus Michelle Rivera. You could potentially see that. So,
with as cumbersome as the way Rolly moved, that may be a tough fight for him. Even that.
Yeah. He doesn't really. He's not very good strategically, and you clearly saw that in this fight against Isaac Cruz. It was crazy. Isaac Cruz is there like 5'4", so yeah, he's gonna go to the body at times with his active hands and trying to just bull rush towards you. But you really didn't see Rolly Romero like establish his distance from the get-go. You know what I'm saying?
Man, I'll put him on Pro Box.
Oh shit!
Well, at least he'll get some eyes.
I'll put him on Pro Box, man. You know what I'm saying?
Did Rolly throw any big punches at Pitbull? Did he throw any big punches at him?
He tried,
him?
He tried, but it went to Isaac Cruz's head, and he has like a rock as a head.
Yeah, you can't exchange with that dude, man. Because
you can't.
That's how he got clipped the first time. He was trying to exchange with him. Esau throw those looping hooks. You can't hook with a hooker.
Right, exactly. Sup, Cat Quest in the building here on the live chat on YouTube, man. Big ups to you, man. Y'all support, hit the like button there on YouTube. You can hit the share button also. We are also on live on Twitter, and you can hit the share button for that as well. With Rolly, all you seen was him like throw one or two punches at a time. He still like had that herky jerky movement. with his feet. So he doesn't really have a quote unquote good stance when it comes to his feet. So it didn't look like, with Isaac Cruz. I'm not saying that Isaac Cruz is that good when it comes to cutting off the ring, but he really didn't have to work that hard to cut off the ring against Rolly Romero, because Rolly was just giving himself up. You know what I'm saying? He was just giving himself up. So yeah, I'm not all too sure if we're gonna see that much there from Rolly Romero anytime soon. I mean, yeah, he's there with Mayweather Promotions, but they kind of like set him up nicely and whatnot, to get him to the point where he was able to get to. But outside of that, I'm not all too sure if they're gonna really have something there for him anytime soon.
I got a compliment.
What he said, I don't think I've seen Rolly throw any type of counters. Like, I just didn't see him, I ain't really see him like throw uppercuts, like counter uppercut or anything like that. But I just didn't see him go to the body. Like, if you know that Isaac Cruz isn't really going to be affected that much by your punches upstairs, just go to the body. See if you can try to slow him down when he's coming forward towards you, man. But
I think it's when I look at Cruz and I look at Rolly doesn't know how to use his jab to like his full advantage. And then also it's going to come at a point in time where you have to know how to fight inside against Isaac Cruz. And I think that's what Floyd was so good at, keeping distance and knowing how to fight inside.
Knowing how to fight inside, knowing how to tie up fighters.
Use the shoulder, use everything.
Shoulder, rolling around, slipping and countering and all that type of stuff. It was just that, all Rolly could do on the inside was hold. And then once, referee Thomas Taylor kind of took a point away from him, and that kind of wrapped things up for Romero. Like, it was different than when Isaac Cruz fought Giovanni Cabrera in the last fight. And damn, Thomas Taylor was the referee in that particular fight. And there was a lot of holding in that particular fight. And there, he didn't take a point away from anybody for holding, but he took a point away from Isaac Cruz for headbutting. But he was intensely headbutting Giovanni Cabrera because he was really frustrated in that fight. But still, when I seen that Rolly got that point taken away from Thomas Taylor for holding, I was like, this was it was a wrap. It was basically a wrap for Romero. But props to him. He didn't go down to the canvas. I thought he was going to get spectacularly knocked out. But he took a whole bunch of them shots from Isaac Cruz and didn't go down to the canvas, man.
Which is what I want to piggyback off of. Many a man, other fighters in that division, taking all that punishment from Cruz, would have quit, would have stopped trying, would have done a lot of different things. He wasn't going to win the fight. We could see that. He didn't have the tools to win the fight, but he wasn't no bitch, though. He at least was trying. He at least didn't quit when he sort of saw the writing on the wall. He tried to do what he could, what he thought he could do, which was not a lot, to control traffic, keep distance, but he didn't quit, though. So I got to give it to him on that part because, I'm glad the ref did stop the fight because it could have got much worse. But he didn't quit. He didn't give up. So
it's like Rolly said, man. Rolly really took the tougher fight. Rolly took the tougher task going into this fight instead of fighting Ryan Garcia.
I'm not a villain. I'm an anti-hero. But I thought that was crazy there from Rolly Romero. Going into the thing leading into this bout, and then he was saying this is gonna be easy night. He's easy to hit. He's easy to hit. Yeah, okay, if he's that easy to hit, then why weren't you able to
hit him? Because he didn't hit him.
It may be easy to hit him, but it's hard to keep him off. That's
the thing. It's hard to keep him off, you know.
But he didn't hit him for real though. I don't recall him like landing too many shots clean.
He got caught with one shot and it changed his whole perspective. He didn't want to get hit anymore. But he had to realize, man, look, I gotta fight this guy. This guy you gotta fight. I think that's what Marcus Brown was telling me before last night.
This you know what though? Yeah, this is going to be interesting. I know that my guy Joe is he's probably going to hit him up, but I would like to hear what Bullet says about this. Because this was first bout that Bullet was not in the corner there for Rolly Romero, so I would like to know what Bullet would kind of like say about like how Rolly kind of like approached this fight there against Isaac Cruz. Cap Quest says, he says, I don't think he has enough sense to quit. Oh, man. Yeah.
If he would have trained with Bullet, I don't know, man. I feel like it would have ended worse if he had Bullet. Yeah, I'm not gonna. I think it would have ended worse. Like Rolly just needed time. Like honestly, Rolly needed time training with Salas. Like it wasn't enough time in between the Barroso fight because he was with Bullet during Barroso, correct?
Yep.
Yeah, and then switching to Salas and then going into this fight. Like, nah, you can't change trainers and then go into a big fight. I think that's a bad thing, man. I think it's a bad thing.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a good look unless you feel like that particular trainer has the tools that could kind of like match with what you already have and what you want to do. And if he could, if they could like improve that for you, then go for it. But if not, then it's not a good look. Especially if they have like a completely different style. Because the thing with Ismail Salas is like Salas has guys like Errol Spence, right? Jordanis Ugas. You probably like name a few other fighters out there, but a number of them pretty much like have or adopt the style that's like more defensive than offensive, So yeah, I don't think that necessarily works there for Rolly Romero. I think he has to be more of an offensive style fighter, but he just doesn't do that. He's kind of like a guy that, as mentioned, who to mention it, Sid. He's actually a little bit when it comes to offense like Adrian Broner when he throws one or two punches at a time.
At least AB more fluid than him. He more choppy than AB.
More fluid, much more fluid than Romero is. So yeah, but that's going to be a good little while before we see Rolly Romero in the limelight like that anytime soon. So it was a short run for him, but that's kind of like how it is in the sport of boxing. What was it? The second bout in the pay-per-view card, Errol Spence versus Michael Zarafa.
I seen that knockout coming.
Yeah. A number of people seen that coming.
I had my parlay last night, bro. I could have won. Had I put $100 on that, I would have won $20,000 last night.
God damn.
Yeah. I don't want
100 on what now?
So I had Lara beating Zafara under 10. I had Tszyu Fundora going the distance. That was like plus 215. The Lara under 10 was plus 160.
Mm-hmm.
I had Pitbull by knockout. That was minus 135. Who else was on that card? Bogachuk was a minus 180.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was one more fight. I think it was
the Martinez versus Cordova.
Yeah, I had that fight going the distance. I had that over. Yeah.
What site you?
I was on DraftKings.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I had like 3 parlays. One of them would have hit. I had Angelino Cordova. That's who I picked to win, and he ended up losing. I thought that was going to be the upset of the night.
Oh yeah, before that fight took place, I didn't really see where Cordova would have been able to get the win, but he like especially in those first few rounds, he was, you know, really blitzing Martinez. It was
And
just
that's what I saw. I saw his ability to just keep punching. You know, I thought
Mhm.
that he would outwork. I mean, they were both out for a year, so I would assume with his ability to do that, he would just outwork Martinez. But he got dropped in those early rounds, and that's what changed the outcome.
yeah,
And he needed
that
to win
pretty
that
much was the
championship round.
difference. Yeah, that was basically the difference in that fight was those you know, those two knockdowns. You know, and I mean, yeah, for real. Because actually, you know, given the scorecards, Cordova had won 6 rounds in two of the scorecards and won 7 rounds in one of them. So no judge had Julio Cesar Martinez winning 7 rounds. None. You know, so it was more about the activity of Cordova over the course of that fight that was just, you know, really key. But it was crazy because you seen there in that fight that Martinez looked much taller, or, you know, like a bigger fighter there than Cordova, and just didn't really take that much advantage over it. Like there were some times, you know, not even outside of the jabs that put Cordova down. There were like, you know, other punches that landed on Cordova that like sent him back a couple steps, and you know, Martinez just didn't take advantage of that. So, you know, I don't know, man. Yeah, he's you know been a world champion there with that WBC belt for a while. He only had that, you know, we had that setback with Chocolatito Gonzalez a couple years ago. But yeah, outside of that, he's, you know, defended that WBC flyweight title. But if you like have him matched up against any of these other guys that hold the title at flyweight, I don't know all how that's gonna work. Ben Rodriguez is gonna move up though because he has that fight with Estrada. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have Sego Akui with the WBA belt, but maybe they're saying like potentially he could fight Martinez could fight Sonny Edwards.
Who he signed with Canelo, right?
Martinez, I think so.
I'm trying to remember how he got on the card.
I mean, but I think they were supposed to have this fight like either in November or December though.
I think
And
it was on that Morel card, right?
yeah, the Morel card. Yeah,
Yeah, he couldn't get past
yeah, the visa joint.
the visa.
So yeah, that was a setback there for him. So but they were able to, you know, get this fight through, and yeah, with Martinez, man, like it was almost like he was just waiting for Cordova to throw punches and then, you know, throw a counter shot. When I'm like, yo, you're the guy with the most experience here. You should be able to like try to overwhelm this guy. You know, you have the experience. You're the longtime world champion. You know, you're the guy that has, you know, all of these big fights behind you. Like, why couldn't you, you know, go ahead and take advantage of it? You know, particularly when, those couple of times when he had Cordova hurt outside of the knockdown. So yeah, that was in yeah, that was kind of like not really a good overall performance there from Julio Cesar Martinez.
Did you catch the Zerto fight?
I did. I did well catch, you know, portions of, well, I was there on the, what was that, like after round 6 there for the Zerto fight against Gulamarian. And it like Gulamarian, man, it looked like he was just holding the belt, man, there. that WBA belt or whatever it is. Because he ain't that good, man. He's not that good.
And then I know Pulev. Did both Pulev brothers win?
Let me see. You had Kubrat and you had Turvel Pulev in action yesterday. That, I'm telling you, man, there was like a hope. Like there was a lot of fights yesterday. A lot. Like there were, you know, you had, you know, that, you know, the pay-per-view, you had the fights on the zone, you had a couple of fights that were on BX, or a couple of fight cards on BXNG TV. You had this thing here with Kubrat Pulev that was supposed to fight for the WBA regular heavyweight title, but what was it? What's his name? Mahmoud Char had been out for due to that arm injury, whatever it is. So it did say that Kubrat Pulev won by unanimous decision, but I'm not seeing anything on BoxRec for Chervel Pulev's Chervel's fight, you know. But I don't know, man. They probably have it on some type of foreign thing if he won. So
Yeah, yesterday was a good day for boxing. I mean, then they carry fights over on Sunday in the UK. So I mean,
it says Chervel Pulev won by decision. Yeah, over this Lambert guy. So yeah, he won by decision. But yeah, that was just a lot of action there on Saturday. You had action here on Sunday too. Yo, that fight that was on what was it? The boxer joint with Frazier Clark and Fabio Wardley. That was a good scrap too.
I didn't watch it.
Yeah, so but I mean it ended up as a draw, but it was a good scrap. What was it? Wardley had a big cut on his nose, there from the back part of that fight, and had to deal with all that. But I don't know, mate. Some folks probably would have thought that Frazier Clark probably pulled that one off, but ended up being a draw there. And then I think they had like some fights in Japan too, so that was all cool and whatnot. But I wanted to get back on the thing there for the pay-per-view, but not necessarily pay-per-view, but you also had those fights that were on the free portion there for Amazon Prime. You did have Sergey Boychuk get the win over Brian Mendoza, just outwork Mendoza and beat him up over the course of 12 rounds there. So now he's the WBC interim champion at 154. And then you had Kermel Moton in there, and he was able to go through 8 full rounds there against an undefeated fighter in Anthony Cuba, and a lot of people are impressed with Kermel Moton. That was just his 3rd professional fight, and he went from like fights that were scheduled for 4 rounds in the first 2 bouts. And then this particular bout was scheduled for 8, and it went the full 8 rounds. And he had a mixture of like good offense, good defense, times when he was scrapping in there on the inside with Anthony Cuba. And like a lot of people were very impressed there, watching Kermel Moton. And they're like saying like, yo, he's the goods. He's 17 years old, and it's almost like he's like nearly ready to face like some, up and coming contenders already, but we'll see how they match him up, because I think they're going to have him really active here in 2024. But like to, usually with guys that just, start up in their, pro careers, they, have a few fights where they kind of like build themselves up and build the records up and things like that. But when you have, a decorated amateur career like Kermel Moton does, they put them in there with, guys that are, up and coming as far as like, with a few fights already in their belt and have good records. Like he's faced 3 fighters that were undefeated already in his first 3 fights. So folks are going to be like, what's going to be the next time we're going to see Kermel Moton in the ring? They're already saying like, hey, maybe we could get him back in there in May. Now he's not going to be back there that soon. But maybe they could fit him in for the Tank Davis card that's coming up this summer. Yeah, Cap says, yeah, Frazier Clark did good in there, just got dropped twice. Yeah, that was the thing, man. He had, Frazier Clark, get dropped twice, and he was still, competing there in that bout with Fabio Wardley. So it was a good one. Like it was a real good one there. So if you do have the Peacock Network, you'll be able to watch that fight. Hopefully you'll be able to watch that fight. Hopefully you still have it. But otherwise you might be able to find it somewhere. where they have the highlights of the full fight somewhere available soon. So, but yeah, but back to Carmel Moulton, like they're already saying like he's the future. Well, I was out there for his first pro fight last September against Ezekiel Flores, and a lot of people were like really, anticipating his pro debut, and then he's able to just get right back in here and have like 2 more fights, and he was like what at 130 to start off with, and now this one was a little bit above 130. So I don't know if he's going to be at 130 or 135. They said like he's had like a growth spurt of sorts there over the past few months. Like I said, he's 17. He hasn't really fully developed yet. So you might see him there like campaigning at 135. V campaigns in 135 here to start off his career, yo. That's going to be something because they folks already saying like he's the next guy up after Tank Davis or something like that. And, they kind of, done some work together in the past. So yeah, he's going to be someone to really watch out for. You know what I'm saying? Tip, were you able to watch that first fight there on that Amazon Prime joint?
You talking about with Carmel, right?
Yeah.
What round? I think I caught it halfway.
Mm-hmm.
He was hitting a lot of big punches, man. I didn't like that.
Yeah, I think, it was around like the 4th to 5th round where he, kind of like winning that exchange with Anthony Cuba. And it was almost like, they're, going at it, and there was like a lot of action there for that. And, maybe he just wanted to show like he could, get in the trenches with these opponents or something like that. But
he's good offensively, but defensively, man, you know what I'm saying? It's going to be a problem if that continues to carry on with him taking big shots like that.
Yeah, but I think to me it was more like him trying to engage with Anthony Cuba or whatever it was. Like when he like kept his distance a little bit, he was doing pretty well when it came to defense. But when he was like up close, then he was getting caught with a few shots here and there. So,
because I seen him. Damn, what fight? No, that wasn't him. That was Robert Merriweather when I guess he was with TMT.
mm-hmm.
He was on a dark card for Frank Martin, Michelle Rivera.
Yeah, because I think this was the first like fight that they had Carmel Moulton like on TV, like the Ezekiel Flores, that debut fight. That was after Canelo versus Charlo ended, and then the next fight I think was like after the Benavidez Andre fight. So,
do they have any other prospects coming out of the Mayweather gym?
They have. Who is it? Oh, I mean, they're supposed to have a couple more that's out of the Mayweather gym.
Because
John Easter, I'm waiting to see what's next for him. John Easter Jr. He's like had what I think about 6 fights. So his last bout was in December. But he's I'm trying to see like what's next for him. Like someone just hit me up in reference to Jaleel Hackett.
But he's gone now, right?
Who, Hackett?
Yeah.
I mean, he might be, but I have to check with his trainer and whatnot, or his dad. What's going on with that, and either his dad or the other guy that's like there with TMT over on this side that deals, that works with him with Jaleel Hackett, because he's had the fight that was in Baltimore, and then he had the fight over in Houston last year. So I have to see what's next for him. I'll probably see if I can reach out to them next week to see what's going on, because like it's been a while since I've like checked up on him. So I have to see how that goes because after he had that after he had that win for it was like the U title or something like that for the WBC. Like they had put him up in the rankings there for the WBC. So
he's at the 154 60 rankings, right?
I think it's 154.
Yeah.
I have to check on that because he had that U title that he was able to get there against Adrian Gutierrez, and that was at 147 actually. So I'm gonna check the rankings there at welterweight because he was there in I think he was just like in the top 30, something like that. But we'll see.
What's the one guy? He's got all this sparring footage at the Mayweather gym. I can't remember his name. He sparred Tank. He's like famous for sparring Tank, but he's out of the Mayweather gym. Can't think of his name.
I forgot who it was.
Oh,
but Cat Quest. I'll see if I can check tomorrow. Probably got a busy day tomorrow, but I'm gonna check tomorrow. What's going on? Over there at the camp because he's Jaleel Hackett's over here around my area, so I'll be able to usually I'll be able to go by his gym or the gym where they're at, but I have to see like what's going on because.
Oh damn! Greg fought yesterday too, right?
Who Hackett?
Greg.
Oh, Outlaw.
Yeah, Greg Outlaw.
Yeah, Greg Outlaw. Yeah. That was yesterday. The RDR Promotions card. That was yesterday. That was on BXNG TV. So like I said, man, they had a whole bunch of stuff going on. Yesterday. It was crazy, man.
Damn, and Suleiman fought yesterday too.
Yeah, Suleiman Segal was on the thing there with in Las Vegas. He ended up losing though.
I figured.
You actually had I think Giovanni Cabrera fighting too. So there was a whole lot of stuff going on, man. So but I have to see what's up because I haven't seen like anything as far as like results from that RDR Promotions card as of yet. Because like I said, I had put the thing in for the pay-per-view, but I haven't seen anything else yet that's kind of like been out there for what's happened. I probably have to hit up some guys out there in Philly for that. Big ups to NPR in the building, man. He says Rolly versus Joseph Adorno is a good fight for Pro Box.
Tell me, man, Rolly on Pro Box. That's the move. Send my boy down there to Florida, get him a couple fights. You know what I'm saying? Bring him back.
Oh no!
Y'all can't keep feeding everybody to Joseph Adorno though, man. Y'all got to leave Adorno alone.
Hey, I don't know, man. Hey, I think Adorno got he got hit there, man. Nicholas Walters, man. Nicholas Walters was like fighting at 140 before that fight or something?
Something like that.
Yeah, he had he was like gone for like six, almost like 7 years. And then he gets like a couple of fights in last year. And then
I didn't realize he had retired after the Loma fight.
Yeah, I thought he retired or something like that. But I knew that whatchamacallit froze him out. Froze him out, yeah.
Damn, he got the Mikey Garcia treatment.
Yep, got the Mikey Garcia treatment, and then he just recently got back. Last year had a couple of fights last year, and then was able to get in on this Pro Box card. But he had fought like up to like 100. He was like 140 pounds, 150 in the fight there before Joseph Adorno. So that's wild, yo. That's wild.
Oh, Kevin Johnson, yeah, that dude, Kevin Johnson.
Kevin Johnson, yeah. Elijah Pierce doesn't. He was on that OTX 5 on Friday. But he's not under Mayweather Promotions, but Elijah Pierce had like a comeback win of sorts. He had got knocked down against what was that, Arthur Villanueva or somebody like that, and was able to, come back and get the win. He was able to knock down Villanueva, and then by the end of the round, he blitzed Villanueva and forced referee to stop it before the end of the fourth round. So big ups to him, Elijah Pierce, for getting that win. It was a pretty good fight, though. It was a good fight. You know what I'm saying? Walters versus Rolly is good for Pro Box too. Just saying. I don't know, man. They'll probably have Nicholas Walters back in on Pro Box in a few months or something. But Rolly Romero, I'm gonna find out. I wonder if there's anybody from Mayweather, TMT, whatever it is, that's been on Pro Box so far. I don't think there's been anybody there from Mayweather's gym that's been on Pro Box. So that would be interesting. But yeah, that poor Rolly. I'm gonna just say that poor Rolly. You know what I mean? But that's mainly what I got from everything that happened on Saturday. It was a very busy Saturday. Whole bunch of fights. Like I said, just focus on what happened there in the pay-per-view card. Props to both Tim Tszyu and Sebastian Fundora for getting through those 12 rounds with 10 rounds of blood and gore and all that type of stuff going on, man. That was crazy, especially with Tim Tszyu losing the amount of blood that he was losing, that he didn't have any type of thing where his equilibrium was compromised or anything like that. So props to him on that. But with that being said, man, that's mostly what I got here for this particular podcast. Biggest for everyone that's joined in on Twitter and on YouTube. Like I said before, support by hitting the like button. You can go over YouTube, hit the subscribe button to support the Boxing Source here, man. We appreciate all that. And we'll have more content here on the Boxing Source. I want to try to follow up with a few of the people that were involved in the pay-per-view card, see if we can get them on here for interviews. And I may also follow up with Haven Brady Jr. that also had a stoppage win on that OTX 5 on Friday night. So I'm going to see if I can follow up with him in reference to his performance that he had there on OTX 5. So with that being said, big ups to the Boxing Academic for joining in here live. Big ups to Tip Bayless for joining in here live. And like I said, spread the word there with the Boxing Source. We try to bring you the content here on YouTube and Twitter and whatever it is, and we try to be as unbiased as possible, even though some people may claim that maybe I don't necessarily like Terrence Crawford, but I'm just telling y'all what the business is. It is what it is. I mean, if I didn't like Terrence Crawford like that much, as some people claim, then I wouldn't put him number one pound for pound on the Boxing Source pound for pound list. But that's neither here nor there. That being said, I'll catch y'all next week. The midweek report is Wednesday. The Boxing Source podcast on Sundays. Y'all be sure to catch up with us. And until next time, I'll catch y'all later. Peace out.
All right.